Did the Hungarian president just get humiliated by Putin? Just how is Putin really showing up, the president of the EU? I'm Paul, U.S. Army combat veteran. Let's talk about it. Okay, so this is a really interesting story. We talked earlier today about Hungarian Prime Minister Viktor Orban's sort of efforts to position himself as this mediator to end the war in Ukraine. And one of the interesting stories, right? He's really postured himself or positioned himself as a sort of mediator. And he's certainly more welcomed than many European countries by Russia, notably because he has served Russian interests within the EU, thwarting and voting against many aid proposals that would have directed additional funds to Kiev to resist the Russian invasion. But he does say, quote, the number of countries that can talk to both warring sides is diminishing. And he added, quote, Hungary is slowly becoming the only country in Europe that can speak to everyone. Now, Hungary assumed the rotating presidency of the EU beginning in July. So while Putin sort of hyped this to Russia as the EU president coming to Putin's doorstep, the rest of the European Council made clear that they said, listen, no, Orban is only here speaking as the head of Hungary, not speaking for other European leaders. And as they point out, right, Orban has routinely blocked, delayed, or watered down EU efforts to help Kiev and impose sanctions on Moscow for efforts in Ukraine. This is Putin's MO, right? Putin doesn't have loyalty in the sense that you and I might consider it for like a friend. Putin only has sort of power exchanges. Look no further than Prigozhin and the Wagner group last year, who was tolerated by Putin until he very suddenly wasn't. And there is no loyalty for Putin. He is simply rewarding Orban for his continued action supporting the Russian war effort. There is no sort of respect-based interactions with someone like Putin. It's all about what you can do for me and what leverage I have on you, right? But here's the thing. Putin also is here to humiliate the Europeans, right? That's a big part of what he's doing. And he really embarrassed Orban here, who, again, bear in mind, Orban went here saying, listen, I'm going to be a mediator. I'm going to bring the sides closer together. That's the key thing. But Putin really needed to throw this guy for a loop here. And before we talk about that, of course, we have just a few more days left on the Strike Gum 4th of July sale. That's right, guys. The American-made caffeine gum is here to ensure you are independent from being undercaffeinated, okay? This pack contains the equivalent of 5 energy drinks. No kidding. Each one of these pieces has all the caffeine of a Red Bull or an Amp Energy, but no sugar. So you'd be crazy not to pick up some Strike Gum. So if you've been waiting, especially if you're one of our European viewers, now's the time. 4th of July sale, 25% off everything. All orders over $25. Discount shows up automatically at checkout, so you don't have to do anything. There's no codes. There's none of that. But you can only get it at Strike Gum. So go to strikegum.com and get your gum today, right? Why would you not? We got the 5-pack. We got the single pack if you want to try it. But honestly, especially if you're European, you're shipping overseas, get the tray, dudes. It's more efficient. It costs basically the same to ship all of these because they're all pretty light. So why would you not get the equivalent of 75 energy drinks? It's a no-brainer. Okay, here's how Putin really stuck it to Orban. Simple. Orban's goal with this was to bring the sides closer together, right? He was like, listen, he's trying to get the West to focus on possible peace negotiations, right? That was his goal. In fact, in an op-ed he published in Newsweek, which is notably because it's a very conservative magazine, he accused NATO of choosing conflict over peace and stated that NATO was established to maintain peace, which is sort of a stretch of reality here. NATO was established to maintain deterrence, guys. It was meant to deter Russian forces, and in the event Russia did become aggressive, NATO was meant to fight Russia. I don't know how else. It requires some really kind of, what's the word I want? Rewriting of history to say that NATO's primary focus is peace. Again, if NATO's focus is solely peace by this standard, the best way to maintain peace is to simply surrender immediately to your enemy at the first sign of aggression. If anyone tries to, right, it's the number one way to avoid having anything bad happen to you is never ever fight anyone for any reason, right? If I want to steal your house or steal your cell phone or carjack your car, your best bet to avoid conflict is to just let them have it. You don't want to make them mad. There could be a conflict. So by that standard, of course, Orban should, of course, immediately capitulate Hungary to Putin. That would maintain peace, right? Orban's op-ed, of course, but it's incredibly embarrassing because Putin came out after this meeting more extreme in his positions than he did at the start, right? Putin, of course, rejected any possibility of ceasefire negotiations. He came out and said Russia isn't interested in a ceasefire. He denied interest in a ceasefire altogether on July 4th and 5th. That's incredibly embarrassing. Imagine how this looks for Orban. He literally was like, the EU doesn't want me here, but I'm going to show up, but I'm going to prove them wrong. I'm going to be the middle ground. I'm going to be the peace negotiator. Imagine he meets with Putin. Putin walks out and goes, whew, I am never going to have a ceasefire. Never going to happen, guys. Absolutely not. We are fighting this war until Ukraine is done. Imagine how Orban feels. He's like, damn, I somehow managed to unnegotiate. I managed to actually make things way worse. That's like actually pretty impressive. Now, of course, to me, for those of us that follow the channel and do a little bit of Putin whispering, we understand that this was basically always Putin's stance, that Putin never sincerely wanted peace negotiations. But now it's even more preposterous, right? And this is likely Putin digging in a couple of reasons. First off, Putin feels he's winning, which is, if you look at the map, he is seizing territory in kind of a steady basis. Let's pull up the map here real quick. You can see he's advancing in Prishayine, Yenahivka, Brivnice, and near a half dozen other areas of the front line, right? Putin's really focused on a lot of this stuff. And you can see he's making these kind of salami slice advances into a number of different areas, right? But Ukraine, again, it's hard to know for sure because Ukraine's so willing to trade space for time, and killing Russians is kind of part and parcel of their objective. So you can see, Russia advanced yesterday. They advanced, what's that? Is that even a block? They look to have advanced, what happened? What happened to Deep State? It used to have a ruler. Used to have a metric. Okay, so it looks like they advanced 156 meters outside Shumi. So, a real game changer effort here. And you can see near Ivanevsky, right? Another place where Russian forces have advanced. You're looking at, let's see, pull out the old ruler. You're talking about 404 meters. So that's the kind of advances, that's the kind of stunning advances the Russian military is making at this point, right? They're advancing literally a few trench lines. For context, a child could run 400 meters in a few minutes. So this is not really like a sign of some kind of big breakthrough or some kind of imminent event. Again, a lot of advances, none of which are really delivering meaningful gains to Russia, at least individually, right? Collectively, there is a strategy here, right? And Putin has a strategy, he's implementing it, and he just believes that he can do this and take these losses for years and years and years. He's like, in 2 years, we'll own everything we want in Ukraine, and he's hoping and frankly conniving to get the West to ignore or back away from Ukraine aid, to just kind of forget about it. Anyway, guys, that's all I had. Thanks to Colonel Tier members of Combat Vet News, particularly Bobby Sue, James Zola, Joe Bowen, Rick Held, Joe Bowen again, James Zula, Bubba Lou, Tib Pastor, Scott Keel, Bobby Sue, Daniel Brown, Chris Holmes, and Dale Packard. Could not do this without you guys and all of your support, including the Lieutenant Tier folks. You know that we've implemented new benefits, not just the twice-a-week videos, but even more. So check it out, combatvetnews.com. And, of course, subscribe to the channel. and like the video. See you in the next one. Cheers.